Hello and welcome to polyplane.com. Today we're going to do a plugin review, so if you don't use Rhino, it's not going to be much help for you, but you might find it interesting because some of the principles are kind of relevant to other programs. Today's plugin is called Displacement, and you can find this at wiki.mcneil.com/lab/displacement. There will be a link below. Let's check it out. Now, if you've never installed a plugin in Rhino before, I have a link to a little guide for how this works. Now, I'm going to be showing you this plugin in Rhino 4, but I'll be straightforward with you. This is a review, and it's not always peaches and sunshine. The Rhino 4 plugin is pretty weak, and it is pretty buggy. McNeil and Associates decided to bring this plugin and integrate it into Rhino 5, and it works a heck of a lot better. They fixed a lot of stuff in here. So I'm going to show you it in 4 because more than likely you're working in 4, but then I'm going to show you kind of the potential the tool has when it's not buggy. Starting out, I've got a surface here. Now, what you need to know about displacement is displacement really works on levels of black and white. So the more white you have in a location, the more displacement is going to occur in that region, and in black, the less displacement you're going to get. So if I have the plugin installed over here. It's just under your regular object properties. There will be a little displacement tab when you install it. I'm going to select an image here. I'm going to use the default turbulence. And it looks like nothing has happened. But if I select the image and I'm going to increase this to like 5 and hit enter, you can see what's happened. The display mesh has now been displaced using that grayscale image as sort of a map. So if we look at this, you can kind of see where there's these 3 peaks at the bottom. Those are the 3 peaks of the image down here at the bottom. The cool thing about this is you can actually make your own displacement maps within Photoshop or any imaging editing software and then bring them into this space. I've had more success using actual like spherical and geometry, like stepping away from surfaces. So if I select this and then we'll use that step, and it'll think for a minute and then it'll step it, and you can see what's happened. It's actually it's manipulated the geometry using the image to indicate where the highest and lowest points are. Now what I can actually do is I can click on this and extract displaced meshes, and what that's going to do is actually create a mesh. It'll keep my original, but it's going to create an actual meshed version of that I can then take and export to whatever. The other thing is it's pretty sensitive to edges and tiling, so if your map isn't perfect, you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on the video, but there is a crease, and that crease is where my original sphere was made, and then that's where the map wrapped around it. If I were to change the map settings of this, the texture map settings of this to something like a box, once I've selected on advanced controls, it's now applied that. So you can see it's applied a box map to that, and that's why it's top, bottom, left, right, front, and back. That's why those creases have appeared, because you've got a box. If I were to go show the map, you can see this box represents a mapping widget. I know we haven't talked about this too much on the site, but essentially that's the direction of the projection of that texture map that's creating the displacement. So that's why it's doing that way. And the reason it's going up at the bottom and up through the top versus like displacing out from the surface on the bottom and all sides is because it has to do with the normals of the surface, but that's getting off topic. We can talk about that more later. But essentially what it does is you pick a black and white image and apply it to your geometry, and then it'll displace it. Let's check this out in Rhino 5 because it is much better here. They fixed a lot of the bugs and it works. So in Rhino 5 you just type apply displacement, select your surface, hit enter, and then you'll get the same sort of dialog box comes up. We'll just select an image here. We'll take let's do this weave pattern, click OK. And it's going to give you a bunch of options for the tiling and everything. I'm happy with what that is, so I'm going to say OK, and nothing's happened. This is because now that it's integrated into Rhino, it's like a sweep or loft command where you can actually preview it, mess with the settings for it, and then get a preview So, from far away, this works really well, and you can do the same sort of thing of extracting the mesh. So, let's say we'll take this and make it just 0.25. Preview that. Yeah, see, that looks pretty good. So if I click OK, it'll build the mesh, and then I can click OK, and then if I want to extract this mesh, I can just type mesh, click OK. Now I've got my actual mesh here, and then the original NURBS. Now, one quick thing, I want to talk a little bit about, say you don't have any maps and you want to make your own. In Photoshop, what I've done is I've created a step pattern here, and this is just a 10 by 10 image at 72 dpi, and I went ahead and with the grid turned on, just marked out even numbers of grids and painted them in progressive levels of black to white. It doesn't have to be this way. We'll add just a little detail here so you can get a little reference point. So we'll put just a black mark in here, and then I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to come back in here to Rhino 5, and we're going to create a new surface. By the way, if you haven't already heard, Rhino 5, the upgrade is available on McNeil's site, and if you buy it now, it's actually like $100 cheaper than what it's going to be. I recommend getting that. We'll do 25 by 25. Okay, so I've got this nice clean surface, and what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to apply a displacement. I'm going to pick my new image, and we'll take that step file or that JPEG file of the steps and open that up and use that, and it's going to load. I'm going to click OK, and then we're going to preview this, and it's kind of neat because you can see that dip where I just put the black in. There's a lot of potential here to do some pretty neat stuff. So, okay, check that out. We've got some really cool lines coming out of here, and that dip from where the black was is showing up really nice. Let's increase the white. Let's make this like 10 and see what it does. And it's gonna fail at very high. There's some subdivisions here for the mesh details. So we'll put it high, see if that works. Preview. Okay, there we go. So essentially, I've just built a bunch of steps, and 10 was my marker. If these were perfectly incremented levels of gray, you could actually make geometry just based on a 2D image that would be numerically accurate. Now this is kind of cool because that black is just not showing up. It's like fading out to 0, so that's why this big concavity is here. So you could actually, say you had like some cool spaceship or whatever, and you wanted to put battle damage on it in sections of the wings. Well, you could actually trim out the areas that you want to be damaged and apply these displacement maps to them and actually create geometry just by creating black and white images to apply over the top of them. So it's really cool, and I highly recommend you check it out and play with this, because this is just, I mean, it's phenomenal. Next week we're going to be talking about 3D patterns, and we're going to be doing half of it in this, and then half of it actually building the 3D geometry and making patterns with that. So kind of familiarize yourself with it and see what you can come up with. There's lots of cool applications, and remember, like if what you've made works for you, you can click OK, select your thing, and then just type mesh and do the displacement. It'll bake it in. And then now you see this happens. The mesh is kind of displacing because I mesh this and it has a displacement on it. So you want to bring up the displacement menu again, and then just click off of there and click OK, and that'll bring the extracted mesh back out. It's not displacing off a displacement. That's why it was getting all weird. So now I've got this actual mesh that I could turn on the points for, and the point count on this mesh is really high, so it's gonna start to eat up your memory pretty quick. But you can see how that applies. So here's the gist of it. Black and white image. You can extract geometry out of it. The Rhino 4 version of the plugin, which the link is below, isn't as great as it could be, but it's a good starting point to kind of mess around and get a comfort zone with the plugin. And then if you're upgraded to Rhino 5 or you're a Rhino 5 beta user, you can actually use it as it's built into Rhino 5 as a tool. So it's a really fun tool to play around with. So, check it out. I think worth playing around with. And I just wanted to say really quick, thank you so much to everybody who emailed me regarding Sketch to Model as far as appreciating the fact that we got the higher resolution version of it back up on the store. It means a lot to me to know that everybody's really enjoying that, and I'm looking forward to making some additional videos. If you guys ever have any requests for special tutorials like that, like Sketch to Model, send it over to me. You never know, I might make it and put it on the store page, because I like doing this site and I like to keep it alive. So if you're ever at the store at polyplane.com/store, I'd appreciate it if you considered purchasing a video to help keep the site alive. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.